Have you experienced financial scarcity? Is discontented with your 9 to 5 and just simply want to be in a position where you can aspire to realizing the ambitions that you have been holding for so long and becoming financially emancipated? Here we're going to be looking at how you can do exactly that. Welcome or welcome back to Ira Living. I'm Kenya, and today we're going to be looking at how I became financially emancipated. And I'm going to share with you the 4 things that I explored in order to become financially emancipated. Now, to be financially emancipated simply means that you have gotten to the place in your existence where you are free from the social, economical, professional structures that they have put in place as to how people earn money. And you are now able to be in a place where you are liberal with how you are able to spend the money that you have and how you're able to earn money. And so that is what we're going to be explaining and having a discussion about in this video. You don't need to be a multimillionaire to be financially emancipated. What you need to be, however, is to have enough income that is coming in that can cover your expenditure, that can put enough aside for emergency and allow you to be able to be deployed in the way that you want to, so that you can continue to create income streams in other formats other than a 9 to 5. Now, the first thing that I did was become self-aware. I became aware of my circumstance and my situation. Now, as a child, I experienced a lot of financial scarcity. And so in a way, I see myself wanting to constantly grab onto money. I also became an adult who was a trailblazer in my family, and therefore had the responsibility of needing to do things to provide for the development and advancement of my family. And so I also had to be spending lots of money in that regard. And I also use money as a result to help with the way that I allow people to perceive me or to see me at that point in my development. And I recognize that that was no way to be. I recognized that by the time I got to my early 30s, I had no savings, nothing put aside for my future. And I knew that there was a big danger in doing that. I was also working in an area where I was feeling discontented with having to do a 9 to 5. In addition to my discontentment, I was also working in an environment where I feel undervalued, underappreciated, overlooked, and underpaid. And all of these things together helped me to come to the realization where I had to start to self-assess, to understand my own value and my own worth and the things that I want to do. And there were lots of things that were my ambition that I wanted to pursue, and they were constantly being backburnered because I needed to go to my 9 to 5 in order to pay for and maintain the life that I was living. Once I was able to fully become aware of all of these things, I was then able to start on the journey of making the necessary changes. The first thing I started to do was to focus on self-development. And the self-development that I focused on was the one in which I was going to reprogram my mind in the way that I think about wealth and abundance, because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And I came to the realization that it is my birthright to be wealthy and to live in abundance because of the kingdom that I am from. And so I started to make myself look at enough things that I can meditate on and that I can educate myself on to start to have this type of thinking. Secondly, I started to align myself with kingdom principles on money and how to steward it, how to invest money, and then how to also increase my earning potential. In addition to that, I also look at how I can improve my skill set in terms of my profession, because I knew that at some point when I get deployed, I will also want to be able to use some of those skill sets because I'm very passionate about the profession or the career I chose. I was just discontented about the way in which the job field was going for me. The third thing I did was to recognize my responsibility and the level of accountability that I need to bring to my whole life and the life of those people within my sphere. And so in my early 30s, I had my first child. And that brought a realization that I did not have money set aside. And this brought a resurgence of the importance to and the urgency to work towards accumulating wealth, because a good human being, a good man or a good woman, leaves a legacy and an inheritance to their children and their children's children. And therefore, I needed to put myself in a position where I would be able to do so. There were also a lot of things that I have as aspirations that were not being realized. And I cannot keep going on that path where these are things that I want to do. I know they're my passions. I know they're my ambitions. And I know that I have a gifting to do them. And I still was not pursuing them. And so I needed to create for myself the opportunity to become deployed. And the only way to do that would be to become financially emancipated. The fourth thing that I did was starting to build wealth. And my step to starting to build wealth started out first with clearing my debts. So I made sure that I was able to clear all of my debts so that I didn't have any debt in the way to become an obstacle to me then moving on to the next step in my process of wealth building. So the second step that I took in my wealth building journey is that I started saving. And of course, we know that we can't become wealthy from saving, but saving is a stepping stone to then be able to create that fund you need to then start to build out that wealth, especially if you're maintaining your 9-to-5 whilst doing so. So I started to develop a savings account, and I start to see how much of that money I can save out. My first target was to try and get to £10,000, and then I started to set myself targets as soon as I was exceeding those targets that I've already set myself, because I was deliberate and determined. I was very intentional at what I was doing in terms of building out the saving. Once I got to a point where my savings was sufficient for me to then be able to invest in my investment vehicle of choice, I then started on my first attempt to do my investment, because my aim was to then start to create a portfolio. And the aim of creating that portfolio is to create sufficient enough means of income so that I can then be able to say, this is sufficient to cover my expenses. It is sufficient to have some funds put aside. I then start to work on my emergency fund to make sure that I build that out enough so that I will have enough money to keep me over should I be able to have the need for that additional money. So with my portfolio that I started to build out, a small portfolio, that portfolio is to bring in the money that I'm going to be needing to replace my income. The emergency fund is for those things that I will need to cover should I run into any difficulties and emergencies, or should there be any shortfall in the income that I was going to be getting. What this then created for me is it gives me an opportunity to then be able to say that I'm financially emancipated, and then be able to deploy myself in the way that I want to then go out there and do my work. So now I'm no longer focusing on doing a job. I'm now focused on doing my work, my kingdom calling, and the work that I've been assigned to do here as an ambassador to that kingdom. Remember, financial literacy is revolutionary. It has transformed my life, and I believe that it can do the same to yours.